Hey there. Thanks for joining me. I'm Mitch Goldberg. We're just going to do a quick live stream today because, it's the same story, but a little different. There's something that changed, like the ground shifted. The Moody's debt downgrade over the weekend, that's when, there's three major agencies or companies that rate the U.S. national debt, which is the treasury market. Standard and Poor's in like 2011 went from AAA to AA. It was like a big down day for it was a down market for like a day and a half, and then it went away. I think 2021, like 3 or 4 years ago, Fitch downgraded the U.S. debt from their top rating one notch from AAA to AA. And Friday night, Moody's, after the market closed, I guess they wanted to give everybody a weekend to digest the news and worry about something for Monday. Moody's downgraded the U.S. debt from AAA to their next rating, AA2. Now, keep in mind, AA2 rating is a pretty good rating, but I don't think investors are looking at the rating like, oh, well, it's still a solid rating. I think investors are starting to look at like Moody's was way behind. Like, how come they took so long to do it and they did what everybody already knew? It wasn't like new news that we have way more debt and too much debt and paying. Not only do we have more and more debt, over $30 trillion of debt, but the more debt we have, the more expensive it becomes, not just because we're paying more interest from the volume, but we're paying higher interest rates because of the volume as well. And the worry now is that people are really taking the national debt seriously and thinking this, on top of tariff worries, other trade worries, economic worries, et cetera, this is now making dollar denominated assets, especially U.S. treasuries, uh, it's making them less desirable. And as a result, investors are demanding higher yields, higher interest rates in order to entice them to buy treasuries. So we're going to talk about that. We'll take a look at the market, the bond market, because the stock market had like a latent reaction to the downgrade, to the Moody's downgrade. And we're finally seeing that in action today. And it's all wrapped up now with the Republicans' job to get a spending proposal and a big, beautiful bill into the Senate. But, you know, that's adding to it because what it's being perceived as by the market is they're damned if they do because they raise the debt by another $4 or $5 trillion. But if they don't do something, well, then taxes go up or they revert back to what they were 10 years ago. And, we have to then worry about raising the debt ceiling again, and a whole bunch of other problems come around. So we are really between a rock and a hard place. We can't really spend so much more money, but we can't really cut back on spending. This is a difficult situation to be in. And as a result, it's driving markets crazy. And believe it or not, this could be an even bigger worry than worrying about tariffs a month ago. So let's roll the intro now on that good news, and we'll get into it. All right, thank you for joining me. I'm Mitch Goldberg. I am a financial advisor, 36 years of experience. I'm with a wealth management firm called Client First Strategy. I just want to start by saying something that I am not giving you. I really, it's hard to say this like in the exact way because I don't want to offend anybody. But if you disagree with me, let me know. Don't just be pissed off. Okay, I'm calling balls and strikes. I don't care what uniform the policy makers are making, Republican or Democrat. I just want to know about the policies, and I want to take how markets are interpreting this and bring it to you so that you can understand what's happening. Because really what you have to understand is the bond market is the big market. We always talk about the stock market because it's exciting, and the stock market is a place where over time, you could put your money into it, earn a return, a potential return over many years above and beyond inflation, so that you could turn your current savings into future assets to pay for your bills after you retire and after your active income stops. So that's what we talk about. People get rich in the stock market and they kind of uh, preserve and get some income from the bond market, is, I guess, a good way for me to say it. But the bond market is the biggest market in the world. It's the most liquid market in the world. It's basically this: the United States can raise money to pay its bills and to pay for all of its programs in two ways, just two ways. Okay. The first one is through taxes. You pay taxes, it goes to the US Treasury. That's like the bank account of the US government. And then that money is used to pay for social programs, defense, transportation, homeland security, all of the things that we spend money in, foreign aid, you name it. And the U.S. government spends a ton of money. We spend more money than any other country in the world. But we are also worth more than any country in the world. Our economy is way bigger than even the nearest competitor, which is China. Our economy is about 6 times the size of China. So, having said that, if the U.S. government doesn't bring in enough tax receipts to pay its bills, where does it get the money? It borrows it by issuing treasury bonds. And these are T-bills, treasury notes, treasury bonds. The only difference between a treasury bill, also known as a T-bill, a treasury note, or a treasury bond, is their length of time until they mature. But they're all treasury bonds. Just, if you buy a treasury bond that matures in 6 months, you'll call it a T-bill. If you buy a treasury bond that matures in like 7 years, you'll call it a note, treasury note. If it's 10 years or 15 years out, you'll call it a treasury bond. But it's the same. It's the same thing. Okay, so I just want you to know, because sometimes people don't realize this, and we talk in street parlance, which I think it's not like everyday talking. If you're not in the industry, it sounds like a bunch of gibberish, and it's I just want you to be in the same page, and now you are in the know. To bring my point home is, eventually, if we issue too much debt, eventually the world just has enough of it. They don't want any more. I think there's something like $36 trillion outstanding of treasury bonds. You could fact check me on that. I don't care. It's a giant number, and it goes up every year. In fact, last year in 2024, the U.S. took in about $4 trillion of tax receipts, but it spent $6 trillion. So that was a deficit, a budget deficit. And every year you either have a budget deficit or a budget surplus. And when you raise that $2 trillion now, that's because of the deficit. Where did we get it from? We sold $2 trillion worth of debt securities of treasury bonds to raise that money. And if we do another $2 trillion deficit this year, then we just issue another $2 trillion of treasury bonds of debt. And it just keeps growing the national debt from 34 trillion to 36 trillion to 38 trillion. And at some point, the people who buy these bonds are going to wonder, at what point does the US government have a little bit of trouble paying back the interest on all these bonds, plus the principal? Remember, when the US issues a bond, it's an IOU. So it's like, if you or I as consumers, we buy a 10-year treasury bond, that means the US government is going to pay us interest twice a year, every 6 months. And that's 20 interest payments. 10 years times 2 is 20. And the end of the 10 years, the day you get your last interest payment is also the day that the government says, by the way, the $10,000 we borrowed from you, we're giving that principal, that $10,000, back to you. The government doesn't want you to take your $10,000 back. They really would rather you reinvest it, because if you take it back, they have to raise another $10,000 somewhere else. But that's how the bond market for treasuries works. That's how all bond markets work, but we're talking about the treasury market. So Moody's downgrades the U.S. debt roughly 14 years after Standard & Poor's downgrades it. I wouldn't be the least bit surprised if Standard & Poor's downgrades the debt again another notch from it went from AAA to AA now to just A. A rating is still good, but when you're talking about the U.S. Treasury market, we're proud of that. We want that to be AAA, highest rating you could get. But a matter of pride is one thing, but it's a matter of investors who are saying your debt rating is lower, which means there is a higher risk of not getting paid back all that money. So therefore, instead of borrowing money, instead of buying a 10-year treasury paying 4.5%, you and I are going to buy that. Now we want 5%, or maybe 5.5%. We want that extra interest to compensate us for taking a little bit more risk of default. Now, I hear somebody saying in the back of my mind, yeah, but the U.S. Treasury debt is backed by the full faith and credit of the U.S. government. And if need be, the U.S. government will print that money before it defaults. So if I want my $10,000 back when my bond matures and I got my interest payments, I'm getting my $10,000 back. Maybe I want the $10,000 back because I need that $10,000 to pay bills because I'm retired, or I want to put it into fixing my roof or something. I want that money back. Well, if the government doesn't have the money, they could print it. That, folks, does not get anyone off the hook. Certainly not the U.S. government. Because if we get to the point where the U.S. government has to actually print money to pay back its lenders, we are going to be in such a bad financial position. You won't. The least of your worries is going to be the stock market, right? That's going to be like the very least thing that you could possibly worry about. So that's one thing. So as we're now going through the House to get a big beautiful bill passed to put in place all of, to get in place all of President Trump's priorities in one big beautiful bill, but it's running into issues. The Republicans can only afford to lose 3 votes out of like 200, and I think they have like 218 seats. Again, fact check me on that, but I think it's 218. They need at least like 215 of the 218 to vote yes. But you have a number of fiscal hawks who are saying you have to cut spending because we keep raising the debt, and at some point, the debt's going to be a problem. And you have others who are saying, but if you cut Medicaid, we're not going to sign off on it, so we're going to vote against it. So you're trying to please a lot of people with different priorities. And then we have the SALT caucus, which is in the state that I live in, that is really pissed off about the state and local taxes. And you are allowed to. It used to be up until about 2017, you would deduct your state income taxes and your real estate taxes in your house against your federal income taxes. And that's what people used to say, you're getting a really good break when you buy a house. It was good for real estate investors. And then people said housing will collapse if you lower that to a limit of only $10,000 for the SALT deduction. We all know what happened to housing. Housing has continued to go up through the roof, just crazy appreciation, regardless of that, regardless of higher mortgage rates. It just goes to show you that when soothsayers and economists and professionals when they make predictions, it just goes to show you should take that with a big grain of salt and really just focus solely on your own personal finance and what is best for your own personal economy, for you and for your family and for your business. Okay, so point is, if we get the bill through Congress to the president's desk, that adds trillions of dollars to the deficit. And that makes the deficit even more precarious, whereas investors are going to want even more interest because now it's just so much debt. Like, what if you can't pay it all back? It's too much. But if you don't get that bill passed, then we have to worry about another problem. Whereas we need a bill, we need to prioritize our spending. We, what's going to come of taxes. Nobody's willing to compromise because there's two ways to balance the to get the bill through. Either you borrow more or you cut more, and depending on which, uh, or you tax more, and it just depends on who has the majority. And it used to be you needed like a 2/3 majority in Congress to get these bills passed, but now because of the political process, you just need a simple majority to get these big, beautiful bills, these budget bills passed, and then they go to the president. If the president is in alignment with Congress, as they are now, then you'll get a law. Okay, that's how that happens. So the bond market does not care. Okay, bonds are not people. They don't care if spending goes up or taxes go up or spending goes down or taxes go down. All it cares about is the credit rating and the belief system that investors have that the United States is a worthy borrower, that they're a responsible borrower, fiscally prudent, so that you could lend money to the United States with ever having any fear or doubt that you will be paid back. When Moody's downgraded the US debt over the weekend, last Friday night to be exact, that fear started to rise a little bit. And now it's become the focus of the day. Truly, it is the focus. It's almost like we forgot about the tariffs. It's like nobody's talking about tariffs today. Um, Nobody's even mentioning the word tariffs. It is all about the deficit. And quite frankly, the deficit to me is something that is a lot more troubling than tariff policies because tariff policies could be reversed. They're not permanent, they're not law. We could get a new president who comes in and says, I'm getting rid of the tariffs, and people will be happy. So that's not law. But no matter who's in power, the bond market is starting to collapse under its own weight. Now, that might sound hyperbolic and dramatic, collapsing under its own weight, but that is the worry of the day. And as a result, you're seeing interest rates soar in the treasury markets, in particular 10-year to 30-year maturities. And that impacts mortgages and car loans and everything else that we everything that we borrow money for. And if that happens, it doesn't matter what the fiscal policy is in terms of taxes and spending and borrowing. You can't outrun the pull of the bond market. The gravitational pull of higher interest rates will pull everything down with it, including stocks and the economy and consumer purchasing. It'll pull everything down. That's the worry. That's why you saw the stock market come down hard today. And that's why you saw the bond market. And that's why you saw the bond market come down hard today. Remember, when the interest rates go up, it actually means the bond market is going down. So I want you to understand what the worry is. Now, these worries could go away. Like we thought the tariff worries were so terrible. They went away, at least for today, because we have something even worse to worry about. And that could go away. Maybe this feeling will go away and we'll be back to, higher stock market again. But you should know what the worry is. And with the downgrade of the debt, my sense is that mortgage rates of 6.5%, 7% is now the norm. It's not like an anomaly where rates are high and they're going to go back down. Now that is considered like the new baseline, for example, and now everything will be keyed off of that. And that I think is a legitimate concern, and that is definitely my concern. That's mine. Let me just show you real quick, okay? Put myself in here. So the Dow was down 816, Nasdaq was down almost 1.5, S&P was down over 1.5%, but the 10-year yield is 4.59. At about 4.5% is when stocks start to worry about markets, and it's very, very difficult for the Okay, it's very difficult for stocks like high tech stocks that are richly valued, like Nvidia. The ones you talk about all the time, the Microsofts of the world, the Googles, the Metas. You you know the names. It's Shopify. I could just go on and name them endlessly, but it's very hard for companies that are trading based on future success to get over the obstacle that higher long-term rates present. It's very difficult for stocks to overcome that. For one reason, bonds now become more competitive to stocks. Well, if I'm going to get 5% on a 10-year treasury without any risk, and if I buy an IRA, that's great. If I buy it in an individual taxable account, at least I don't have to pay state income taxes if I live in a state with a high state income tax like California, New York, and New Jersey. So, and Massachusetts and others. But that is a key concern. So we will. I'm following this very closely. I was quoted today. I'll just show you real quick. This is not. Oh, here it is. This is the article I was quoted in today. I don't mean to make you nauseous by scrolling too quickly, um, but if you have a chance, this is the article I was quoted in. Man, oh man, it's a big article, so it's taking me a long time to scroll to the top. I didn't write this. I didn't know. And I want you to know, I did not write this article. I did not know the title of the article in advance. And it is written by a journalist, one of the top writers of CNBC, Jeff Cox, who is a very fair person who's just a journalist who just goes by the facts. He doesn't get into the uh, rigmarole of cable television opinion hosts, okay? But he says the Republican spending bill is sending yields soaring and creating a major market headache. And that is what's happening. So he's just reflecting what he sees, reporting back to you. I'm in the header here. I feel like the dam is finally starting to break a little bit, and there's too many holes in the dike to put our fingers in it. I say a whole bunch of other things in this article. If you have a chance, take a look at it. I could email it to you if you want, and I'll post it on social media. But you read the article, it's a pretty good explainer of what's happening. But the bond market is clearly unhappy with the state of the debt market, with the state of tariffs, with the state of inflation. And now the last straw is adding trillions of dollars more to the budget deficit, to the US national debt, is really starting to irk bond investors. And if bond investors are unhappy, I promise you, they will make all of us unhappy. So that's the name of the game right now. I hope you found this to be informative. And if you don't mind, give me a like and all that. I see Jerry out there. Thank you. Give me a thumbs up or a heart. Maybe share this on Facebook or LinkedIn with your friends, and let them know about the kind of things that we're reporting to you on. And of course, if you have any questions about your financial planning, investments, you can reach out to us. We'll give you our opinion of where things stand, and we can help you in that area. Okay. Thanks so much, and have a great day. And I will, if I can find the mouse on my screen, I will end the show. Okay, here we go. Thanks. Bye.